myself. I've been pushing through pain, I've been fighting like hell. It's hard to feel safe and steady when you're sick inside your body. So it's great to meet you, put a face to your voice. I feel like when I talked to you a couple weeks ago, like it was like such like a deep, good conversation. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wish we could talk for like a couple more hours. It
I
was so
know. I
cool.
also was like, I wish we were recording this right now because it was so good.
That's
I think we
true.
were
I didn't even
sharing
think of
such
that.
helpful information. Yeah.
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 So I met you through Patricia, who we haven't had her on the podcast yet, but she's been a really awesome like support for me in the Lyme community. And I believe, do you guys know each other through doing the empowerment circles? Is that how?
So we technically met through Write Out Lyme when they were in.
Okay.
Are you familiar with them? The
Yeah,
not-for-profit?
yeah.
It's no longer, my understanding, in existence, but
Oh, okay.
we met at an event, a fundraising event, and we just clicked.
Yeah.
And then, we connected for the Empowerment Circle through Sharon Wampler, who started San Diego Lyme Alliance, which is a Bay Area Lyme Foundation affiliate. So they started doing groups. I joined in, and it's been like, I think over 2 years now of us doing that.
Wow.
It's pretty wild. But
That's
I believe
so
Patricia
cool.
and I may have met. So cool. We met in 2020 though, right? Like right when everything
Oh my word
happened.
Yeah. Wow,
Yeah.
that's so crazy. So I definitely want to get into like your practice and the coaching and therapy and all that. But before we get into that and your Lyme story, can you just tell us like a little bit about who you are, like what you enjoy doing, and just you as a person?
Sure. So I'm a licensed psychotherapist, and I live out in Joshua Tree. I live in nature, and it's just so interesting, all the events that it took for me to get to this point, even being a therapist, because prior to getting sick, I was set on doing humanitarian work.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Doctors Without Borders, like that was everything I ever wanted to do, is just live and be in service in these countries. And when I got sick, that totally shifted and changed, right? There was so much grief in that. And basically I became the therapist I seriously wish I had. And I think I was telling you that when I was sick, because there were no therapists who like understood all of the complications, the complexities of what this is truly like. How this manifests, what it takes to holistically take care of yourself in mind, body, spirit. So anyway, I like see it as a total post-traumatic growth gift of like, hey, this is why I'm here. And I moved out to Joshua Tree to get away from mold and be in a really dry place. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Are you from that area? Like, are you from California?
Yeah, I'm from Southern California. I grew up like Orange County, Long Beach, went to school in Los Angeles, then moved to San Diego, and then ended up here.
Wow. So were you in school, or when did you start, like, I guess, getting sick with Lyme? Because were you already in school to become a nurse or something like that to do the Doctors Without Border?
No, so I finished school in 2012. My first master's. And in order to do like humanitarian work, you have to get licensed. So that can, on average, range from like 4 to 6 years post grad to get your license. I think it took me around 4 years. And as soon as I got licensed, like I was with Red Cross and like other NGOs, and was working in a hospital. So the hospital's quite nice and flexible with me to be able to like leave and go do disaster relief work and then come back to a job.
Holy cow.
And yeah. So I just kept doing that. But I got sick when I was serving in Mexico after the earthquake in 2018.
Wow.
I got really sick when I was out there. I got Giardia and other things and ended up in the hospital. And seriously downhill from there. Granted, I've had autoimmune diseases and other chronic illnesses prior to that. Like,
Oh,
I
wow.
was first
Okay.
diagnosed with POTS when I was 19. So I'd already been
Oh.
through this for at minimum a decade. Since I was a young child, I had health stuff, but like to the point where it was debilitating and I couldn't
Yeah.
physically work or take care of myself. That's when it all came to a head, was when I was working. So I had to cut my contract. I had to come back to the US. I had to get like proper medical care. And that's like when I was passed around, like so many of us, like a hot potato, like we don't, we don't know what symptoms these are. Maybe just take steroids and call it
Yeah.
a day. And it's like, no. And I was just collecting like all the diagnoses of like autoimmune diseases. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, but what's my whole thing, like since the beginning, is what's at the root of this?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you're not helping. Anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
it's so frustrating. I felt like no one was actually trying to help me. So I ended up at a naturopath school, someone in San Diego that someone had recommended, and thank God they did, because they were the ones that were like, well, this is really complicated, like whatever you're
Mhm.
experiencing, but we think you need to see like a proper rheumatologist. They didn't mention anything about Lyme at the time. They're just like, go see
Okay.
this rheumatologist across these taught classes here. And they said I had two choices, like him or like the conventional UCSD or Scripps rheumatologist. I'm like, you know what? I'll see both, because I don't know the difference.
Yeah, yeah.
So I went to go see him, and he finally got in. He took like one hard look at me just based on presentation symptoms, and was just like, cat scratch fever, Lyme, so
Wow.
forth. And I'm like, what? Yeah. And I knew nothing about Lyme at that time. Seriously, nothing. Like I heard about it peripherally, but not, not in the sense that I knew anything about it. So
Yeah.
my partner at the time was just like, what? And I'm like, what? So yeah, that was kind of like the start of everything, honestly. Like, I finally named the monster, as I like to call it, and
Mhm.
felt like I could start. But I mean, it got way worse before it got better. So much worse.
It's crazy that you got diagnosed with POTS and other autoimmune before like the Lyme diagnosis. And POTS, it seems like, is
Yeah.
something that is common with people with Lyme. I don't know what if there's like a link, but it seems like a lot of people with Lyme also have POTS. Um, so it's so crazy that like your story, and I swear I say this almost every episode, like everyone's story obviously is different and unique to themselves, but there's so many similarities, like the autoimmune problems when they were like kids or teens or young adults and not getting a Lyme diagnosis. Like there's been multiple people I've talked to who have traveled outside of the US and that's when their
Yeah.
symptoms flared up. So maybe it was like the Lyme was dormant and then that's when it started wreaking havoc or whatever it is. And I just wish, I remember saying this on Jake's episode, Jake Myers. I just wish there was like, and I'm sure that this does exist out there, but like someone could just take like a spreadsheet and see all of these commonalities and figure out how to start like getting like I don't know. It's crazy that it's still not. I guess it's becoming more prevalent, or maybe people are looking more into getting tested, and it's more on the forefront of their mind. But it's nuts that it takes so much to just go to a doctor and have them like they don't even mention it half the time. I feel like it's just crazy.
Well, it's not even chronic Lyme's not even recognized, right? First of
Yeah.
all, it's not recognized. Like, I took my diagnoses to that other rheumatologist I'd mentioned in the conventional hospital, and they were just like, they literally said to me, chronic Lyme does not exist.
Wow.
And that's like the most gaslighting statement in the world,
Yeah.
because what you're saying is that I am not experiencing what I'm experiencing right now, and there's no reason for it. So just keep taking steroids and
Yeah.
be happy. Make the most out of your life. And like, I'm sorry, that's unacceptable. I won't accept that. And not to mention, it's like back to what you were saying about Jake. You're like, I wish there was like, oh wait, well, there's over 300 symptoms of Lyme, and many of which are psychological and psychiatric. And that's a whole other thing. It's like,
Yeah.
it blows my mind. I'm like, how many people right now? I mean, did you see? I don't know if you saw that article about that one woman who she was like in a psych hospital for a really long time, and they found out she had lupus this entire this entire
Wow.
time. And the moment they started treating her, her psychiatric symptoms dissipated. And I'm like, how many people are walking around today who are just sick, mentally, physically, or otherwise, and just haven't named the monster because no
Yeah.
doctor has taken the time, taken the energy to get to the root cause.
Yeah, that's one thing that, like,
Yeah.
super impressed me, when I was talking to you amongst a lot of different things, but the first off, the thing that you have where, if someone's going to work with you, like, agreeing to, like, put in place these, different, like, I don't even know what you'd call them. Some of them are therapies or just, like, lifestyle, like, decisions, choices, but then on top of that, when you said, don't you usually recommend, like, I think people to be tested for Lyme, or maybe you said that you recognize and help them, and that's huge because, like, think about it, that's kind of one of the bridges probably to people with, like, different mental disorders who are able to see a therapist, getting diagnosed by a therapist who recognizes the symptoms maybe quicker than, like, their normal doctor would. So I think that what you're doing is huge, and you can explain more about how you go about that with your
Yeah.
patients, but I think that's so cool that you do that.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, like, I've gotten a lot of people like diagnosed, not through myself, but through a root cause doctor, without even realizing that they come to me with mystery symptoms. And I'm like, okay, I'm all about ruling out. So
Yeah.
perhaps you don't have Lyme, but maybe you have a co-infection. Maybe it's mold. Maybe it's parasites. I mean, it all ends up being just a soup. That's what I call it. I'm
Yeah.
like, what's in your soup? Is it EBV? Is it parasites? Is it heavy metals? Is it mold? Like, have you gotten your home checked for mold? Like, these are the things that I do require of my clients because we are biopsychosocial spiritual beings, and like I can help with some of that, but like there's parts that I'm meeting with them online. I'm not an MD, so I can't formally diagnose in that way, but I
Mhm.
can. I can require that if you work with me that you do see a root cause doctor to rule those things out to better understand. Yeah, because we all have to, it's holistic. We have to work with every aspect, with every facet. And you'd mentioned also something about Jake and like POTS, for example. Like, a lot of people with Lyme have POTS, and like it could be argued too that but POTS is an autonomic nervous system disorder.
Mhm.
The autonomic nervous system, that's our heartbeat, our blood pressure, our temperature regulation, and so much more. And that could be argued that when we've been in fight or flight for so long, where our limbic system has just been wrecked, completely wrecked, we start to see some of these issues crop up because we're not meant to be in fight or flight for that amount
Mm.
of time. It's
Yeah.
supposed to be a short little stint, right? Where something happens and we then like take care of ourselves, and our nervous system like returns back to this like place of homeostasis. But if it's been in this fight or flight for so long, for so many years, things start to go awry because our bodies cannot prioritize both survival and healing at the same time.
Mm.
So that's the other requirement is a neural retraining program. Is I
Wow.
have every client pick one of their choosing, whatever they want,
Yeah.
and complete it because I've seen that work wonders for it saved my life, and I've seen it work wonders for so many other people. And I'm like, at the end of the day, it's definitely not going to hurt you to
Yeah,
try it,
yeah. And you
if you haven't already.
didn't you develop your own retraining?
Mm, Um, no, I mean, I have like my own that I do. I'd love to probably at some point when
Okay.
I have capacity.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it'd be cool. But I do have like my own little thing that I kind of like add on. Like,
Okay.
I kind of piggyback off like the other ones where I'm like the things that they're not doing that I'm aware of that I
Okay.
think were helpful to me and might be helpful to clients. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Um, so let's go back
Yeah.
to when you were doing, so you went through like maybe your like your health journey, like almost like the crisis you said you're being passed around and stuff like that. What got you to want to become a therapist? Were you going to like different therapists and you weren't finding like someone who understood, or how did you kind of move into that space?
Such a good question. Yes, exactly. So I was seeing, I had read and learned about the trauma connection to chronic illness. And I noticed, like, when I went to grad school, perhaps it's changed by now. I hope it has. We didn't learn anything about trauma informed work like that. From my understanding was that post grad, you could take, classes and courses and get certified on trauma informed um, modalities. But in
Wow.
school, there was little, I know it's not depressing.
That's
So
crazy because there's so many different
I
types of,
know,
like, trauma, even little things that, like, I'm just
I,
learning were I didn't even know that it's traumatic. I went to this, doctor in Connecticut, and she helped me do neurofeedback, and I learned so much from her. She's so smart, and, her name's Dr. Roseanne, and I remember her saying, just the day that you go from being completely fine to being in pain head to toe was traumatic. And, like, it's almost like now that thought is like a given. Like, I'm like, of course that's traumatic. But I never like clicked in my head and I never thought of that. And I didn't realize it almost like helped resolve a little bit in me or like make a step to because I that grief thing you mentioned earlier, like, it almost was,
Mhm.
like, hard to understand why I carried this grief of me of why it's hard to accept you're in this, and, like, that is so traumatic, even just one day you're completely fine, and the next day you're sick, and then you just keep being sick. Like, it's crazy that that one thing can be a trauma amongst a lot of different things, and that's not even taught in school. You have to take,
It's
like, an
not in,
elective.
medical trauma isn't even like in the DSM, like our diagnoses book, right? But it, like, I hope that at some point
Wow.
it gets in there, because anyone who comes to me, like, I'm like, medical trauma, medical trauma. I mean, of course, our medical system is not set up for us. It's not set up for people like us. It
Yeah.
can't, they're not, these doctors are not educated on how to treat us, on how to diagnose us, on how to prevent this from happening, like nothing. And yeah, it's seriously shocking. So I like started reading. I'm a big fan of Dr. Gabor Mate. For those who don't know, he's a psychiatrist in Canada who he specializes in chronic illness and substance abuse, which are like, well, those two things have nothing to do with each other. Actually, they have quite a bit to do with each other. I won't get into
Wow.
that right now, but they do. But those are his two specialties. And he wrote a book called When the Body Says No. And so I read that book. It must have been 2018 or 2019. And I was just mind blown, because it's all about when the body starts saying no for you, because you didn't say no for yourself first because of a trauma response.
Whoa.
And getting getting to the bottom of that. So I couldn't find a chronic illness therapist. So I found an EMDR therapist, which I'm like, okay, EMDR, like, yes, like, let's get into this. Let's get into my traumas. Like, I know I have a bunch, like, let's figure this. And I wasn't even thinking of like the medical trauma at that point. I was thinking just about my childhood. And the problem was that this person I went to go see was, yes, obviously trauma informed, but not chronic illness informed.
Okay.
And this is my problem, like with, and I'm, by the way, I'm EMDR trained now, but this is what I know about EMDR and any trauma informed modality, is that you have to make sure a person's nervous system is ready to go before you start delving into these things. Because what can happen, this is what happened
Oh.
to me personally, and I've heard it happen to so many people, is we started going into it and I became that much more dysregulated in my nervous system. And what if I'm more dysregulated, my healing goes further back onto another
Wow.
back burner, because my body is just trying to keep me safe and like as regulated as I possibly can be given the situation. So like in some like weird roundabout way, it kind of like set me back. Like ultimately it was helpful. I know, but it was like, I even got like sicker because of it. So like,
Wow.
anyway, I it ended up not being a good fit for a myriad of other reasons. And I'm going to say this aloud in this podcast, whoever's listening, is like, you can shop around for your therapist, you can shop
Yeah.
around for your doctor. You have every right to find the right practitioners in your life. You're paying them. They're not paying you.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to put that out there. Like,
For
and
you
if
kind of
your doctor
thing.
or therapist has like, and exactly. And if they have an ego about it, like that's even more of an affirmation as to why maybe it's time
That's
to
true.
like move on and find someone like you. Like the whole thing I'm going to say, I say this to clients, I say this to friends, I say this to family, like listen to your nervous system will tell you like who feels good to you at all times. Do you walk out of an appointment feeling more hopeful and empowered and like just strong-willed and with strong belief, or do you leave feeling crappy? And like
Yeah.
Facebook, same with like Facebook, a lot of clients get, and I was one of them, like got caught up in like the Facebook groups because it's like,
Oh,
dang, like a place where people understand what I'm actually going through because no one else does. And it's like,
yeah.
yeah, cool. But how are you feeling after you're in those groups? Like,
Yeah.
so anyway, I ended up connecting with this woman on Instagram because our community is huge online,
Mm-hmm.
which is can be really, really powerful and nice. And
Yeah.
she mentioned something about her therapist in London, like England, a chronic illness therapist. I reached out and I'm like, hey, can I get your therapist contact info? I'm like, oh gosh. And then he's out of the Breakspear clinic in London.
Okay.
And so of course I had to find a therapist in another country.
Yeah.
But we ended up connecting, and he didn't use like the modalities I like was exactly looking for. But like he was able to meet me where I was. I didn't have to give him subtitles. He would meet me for longer than an hour, which gave me permission to also do that for my clients when I was ready. And
Yeah.
I'm just so like, and I still meet with him from time to time. Like I'm so grateful to him. And like, he does couples therapy. So some like my clients who want to do like couples
That's so
work, or if a
cool.
client's looking specifically for a male, I'm like, okay, go see him. And, but anyway, like these things shaped me, and I've gone to therapy, let me just say, like prior to getting sick too. So
Yeah.
for like a good portion of my life, I've been in and out of therapy. So I've met with all kinds and sorts of like therapists and coaches, and yeah, and I still do, because the more work I do on myself, the deeper I go within, the further I can go with my clients,
Yeah.
right?
That
Yeah.
makes so much sense. And that's cool that therapy, whether or not it was, I'm not saying it's cool that you had to start therapy, but the thing that you were always using it, or for a while were using it as a tool, which is what helped you know to go for it when you started having the chronic illness problems or experiencing want to talk to them. Because that's what I was thinking when you're talking is literally, like, I think it was just within the last year that I heard of like a Lyme literate therapist, and that's why I've kind of gone down this rabbit hole where I'm like, I have to like do anything I can to help other people know that this is a thing, because it's one of those things where now that I know it, it's like, duh, of course it should be a thing, and of course there are some out there, but I never thought about going to someone. I would go to therapy appointments and I wouldn't even really mention my pain, because and that's my main symptoms with the Lyme. It's like the one thing that I have to talk about, or probably would need to talk about, but I wouldn't even bring it up because I would just think, I don't know, they don't understand, why would I even talk about it? But knowing that that's a thing is just so powerful. So I think it's neat that you already had therapy as a tool. So then that's what kind of made you know, oh, like I'm going through this, I should have someone to talk to for this. It's huge.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's frustrating when the person, I was spending sometimes like half an appointment, like Googling what some things meant for, like, I felt like I was doing their job, like things
Holy
that they
cow.
like could, already know. And I
Yeah.
was going to say, prior to getting sick, like I'd never met with a trauma informed therapist before. So this was like all very new to me as a client, and professionally, as a therapist. Like I had mentioned, we weren't trained to be this way, to do these things.
Yeah.
So yeah, ultimately I'm like, this, like, people need this. Like
Yeah.
I want to be this for people. Like, I'm not going back to humanitarian work. Humanitarian work almost killed me. Like, the person, I'm not going to go back to the person I was before, because that person got me sick. I always say
Yeah.
that. They're like, oh, I want to go back to who I was before. I'm like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
No, do you really? Let's think about that. Let's really take that into consideration. So like, the person I was before was like this overachieving, people pleasing, giving like a 200% in projects and 0% to herself.
Mm.
Like everything. Like I was just completely like in service, which is like this beautiful thing, but also like to like what extent? To what
Yeah.
extent? Like, can we be in service, like, while taking really good, nourishing care of ourselves?
Yeah.
The answer is yes, of course. It's just going to look different, and it's going to feel different, and I'm just not who I was before, and this was not in the cards for me. Like, if you had asked me prior to getting sick, like, you're going to start your own, your own practice, and this is what you're going to be doing, like, I would have laughed in your face. Like, no, like, I'm doing macro, which is macro meaning like humanitarian work, like working with bigger groups and policies, and so, like, not micro one-on-one. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm here now.
It's so
And
cool. That's like another similarity so far that I've noticed in the people that we've interviewed, but then also, or I've interviewed, but just the people that I've come to know in the Lyme community who are like using getting sick for like the good and to help people, and it always is that way. It just like had put a different spin on like your life, but put you into a direction that is like almost makes like you a better person, but then what you're doing for others better. Like it's healthy on
yeah,
both sides, which is really cool because I can say the same thing for myself. If I didn't even like, yeah, I never would have thought I would be doing a nonprofit or any of the stuff that I thought it was going to be like. I wanted to be in film. Like I wanted to be like
yeah.
behind the
I was going to
camera.
ask, what was your past life and, like, prior to all of this?
So I really I was like long story short, I was sick like on and off as a kid, and now looking back with different, I swear every time I go to a new specialist, they like track it back to this age, the Lyme and all these different things, but we wouldn't have known at the times. Um so I kind of I always did music and I always did film. Like I was always editing videos, filming in high school, and I really wanted to be someone who was behind a camera producing films and doing music like on the side. And so when I was graduated high school, I was going to go to this film program. It ended up being like a scam, which I guess was kind of a good thing because it was really sketchy. And then I went into music production, and then I dropped out of school I because of like kind of being sick, and then other different um now like looking back, like different things in my life that were a little bit traumatic that just caused me kind of to break down all at once. um so yeah, I wanted to be like behind the camera, but there's things now that I'm getting to do in other ways where I'm still able to implement video and music. Now I'm just doing it more for like, I guess, as a with a purpose behind it rather than just like filling that like need I had. So yeah, one thing I wanted to say that I thought was so interesting when you said you did the EMDR, but you like weren't necessarily ready. And a memory came back when I was 20. I was seeing a therapist, and she is still like, I haven't seen her in a couple years, but like one of the people who like just is stuck in my mind as who's always like a help. And she wasn't necessarily like a chronic illness therapist, but she was able to relate on a personal level because of something she went through. Anyways, I remember when she was 20 recommending that I do EMDR, and I ended up moving so I wasn't able to do it, but I didn't even know what it was back then. But since then I've thought, as I'm going through this stuff as an adult, I'm almost 30, and I felt like, okay, now I'm at an age where I'm able to process and really know. I can't even imagine if I was 20 and I had uncovered, the things that came naturally as my brain was healing and as I was ready to heal. I can't even imagine if I was thrown into that when I was 20. I literally think I would have had a complete like breakdown. So that's really, I that makes me a little bit sad for you that you had to go through that. And I know no one did it on purpose, but it just goes to show how important it is for people to know all aspects of like healing and trauma and stuff like that before just throwing someone into that kind of treatment and healing.
Definitely, definitely. That's why I'm like, man, if I could go back in time, the first thing I would have done was neural retraining to get myself
Mm.
out of that fight or flight mode, to literally retrain my brain to retrain my limbic system. So to rule out any limbic system dysfunctional issues. Limbic system affects our autonomic nervous system, for example. Like at 19, getting diagnosed with POTS, it's like, dang, I wish I would have known that information. I mean, everything is in divine order and timing. I trust that all the time. I really, truly hope, believe in that. So it's okay.
Yeah.
I learned it just at the right time when I was supposed to. I'm just saying, like, so when people come to me, I'm like, hey, this is what I would have done if I was in your, you know what I mean? Your same situation back then. And, you know, then it's up to them to decide, you know, what to move on first. But it's just interesting because like these doctors just like throw supplements and like treatments at you like so hard. And then like, if your body is not in a space, it's in a fear, it's like a fight or flight response. And, you know, just for those who don't know, there's 4 F's to that. There's fight and flight, there's freeze response. Freeze response is when we physically can't flee a situation, we freeze. We go into a dorsal vagal response. And then there's fawning response, which is like the people pleasing, this the overachieving. Wow. And so often I see the fawning response and the freezing response in my clients, like between, and they usually oscillate between both of those. Like they're so frozen in fear, like they don't know what to do next. Or they're in that, like, they're still in that people pleasing mode, which, you know, I think at least for me, I know I'll be healing from that for the rest of my life. Yeah. I'm in codependency recovery. And that's another thing. If you think you're in a fawning response, there's codependency anonymous, and it's free to attend those groups.
Wow.
So anyway, yeah. But like just getting people out of that fight or flight into a safe space where their bodies can take in that medicine, right? They're not juggling like there's a tiger behind you chasing you. And I'm trying to ensure that this charcoal is binding to all of your toxins. It's like, no, I want that reserve. I want all that reserve to go towards my healing, not to my survival.
Wow. That's so cool. So you are a psychotherapist, and right now you're licensed in Washington, Oregon, and California?
Yeah. And then I also coach outside of the States. Like I can't use certain modalities, but like I do some coaching. So like in those cases, like I'll have them see a therapist in their state, and we'll do other stuff that their therapist may not touch on, or just being here for them, which is huge. It's really important for us to feel heard and seen by someone who seriously gets it.
Yeah. That's so cool. It's cool that you can still offer some of your services, but then I like that you also encourage them to see a therapist. So it's like they're not completely relying on you in that manner. Wow. That's so neat.
Yeah. And that therapist can go and, like I said, use other modalities that I like cannot in their state unless I go through the process of getting licensed. And, you know, thankfully there are more chronic illness literate therapists now. And I'm encouraging like any therapist I know out there who has chronic illness to like consider and start catering to our community. We need as many as we possibly, and I know I connected you to some. So when people reach out to me, it's like, it's nice to know like, okay, you know, there is someone I can send you to in your state. And then like, technically, like we can also work internationally. So I have international clients. Like, it's so funny.
It's so
like,
odd.
Within the States, it's so like, don't make it make sense. Make it make sense, because it doesn't to me. But it's set up that way. I don't know why there isn't like a national system, but until then we have to just work with what we have. And and I just, when people reach out, I'm like, I also encourage them. I have the free support circle once at the third Tuesday of every month at 6:00 that I get to co-facilitate with some really amazing people. And it's called the Empowerment Circle, like you'd mentioned in the very beginning with Patricia. And the goal is that people do truly feel empowered when they leave from it. But it's our community is so amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It's like made up of people who just want to help and heal themselves, but then help heal others. It's like, it's very powerful. The map I like started working on, just like coloring in the states that I know there's chronic illness therapists so far, so I can, like, see what states aren't, covered or see where I can try to find people, 'cause I like to visualize, so hopefully eventually we'll have that, up on the website with, like, resources and stuff like that, 'cause that's definitely, um, as I've kinda told you before, something that I wanna help move or have I Love the Way You Lyme have, like, a hand in is, trying to help, yeah, just be, like, a resource for people to be able to find the different chronic illness therapists and stuff like that, 'cause that's just huge. Um, so I wanted to talk about you have the journal, but then the app too. Can you kind of explain those 2 things, and go into that?
Sure. Sure, sure, sure. So yeah, when I was couch bound, a friend had encouraged me to watch this video by Dr. Terry Walls, who essentially healed herself or put her MS into remission. She was wheelchair bound. She was so sick and she was
Wow.
only getting worse and worse and worse. And recommend watching her TED talk for sure. And what I realized whilst watching her TED talk was A, I for sure had to get her book, but B, I needed to read and listen to more of those like radical remission stories
Mm,
because up until that point, I'd only read and heard of like, this is chronic Lyme, it's forever and it's horrendous and it does this to you and this thing will start failing you and that thing will start failing you and like just surrender to the rest of your life being like this and maybe even getting worse. And
yeah.
like that was not conducive to my healing. That was actually
Mm,
making my cortisol levels jump up. And we're going to just say like, we're always trying to make our, serotonin and dopamine levels go up because that fights the cortisol that takes us out of the fight or flight. Anyway, so these stories were putting me further into fight or flight.
mm,
So reading or listening or watching Dr. Terry Walls, I was just like, wow, like you could put MS into, this is the first time I've heard you could put MS into remission. Like I thought that was like the rest of your life, right? That's
yeah.
what we hear, so many of us hear and know. And anyway, so I read her book and before, like she has her own protocol and before she gets into it, the one thing she really pushes for is journaling. And she likes like journal like what you're eating and what you're drinking. And I'm like, okay, cool. So like some like mind body journaling. Cool. But I looked for journals that kind of already had these prompts set up so I wouldn't have to like create them myself. And
Yeah.
I seriously could not find a mind body journal that made sense. And of course there were none with like also the spiritual component to it, like gratitude
Yeah.
and self-love and visualizations. So I just ended up, I was like, fine, okay, I'm just gonna, you know, take a notebook and just start writing my own prompts. But I started like delving into like researching the benefits of journaling, researching like certain prompts and questions. Like I'd read about this woman who was like super sick. I can't remember from what, and took it upon herself to like sit in front of a mirror and tell each body part like how much she loved it, what she
Well,
loved about it, and eventually started feeling better and better and better. And that prompted me to do the same. So I felt like one prompt of like something you love about your body, which was really hard because at that point I'd have been so disembodied and
mm,
disconnected from my body because I was convinced like my autoimmune disease, your body's attacking yours. Like I just assumed like my body, I hear people say, my body hates me.
yeah,
My body's
yeah.
trying to kill me. Like, stop saying that, everyone. Like, please, like, PSA, like, your body loves you. Your body wants the best for you. Your body wants you to heal. Your body is your best
Mm,
friend. Like, your body's not trying to harm you. Your body
yeah.
would never try to harm you. And so, like, changing that narrative to where it's like, seriously, like I love my body. It's trying so hard to heal from
Yeah.
this really difficult, challenging, awful thing that I wish upon no one, but it's trying its best to heal me from this. Like things like that, like just like the regular, like what I ate, how much I slept, did I have any dreams last night? What my blood pressure was, my blood sugar, bowel movements, where I was in my cycle,
Wow.
and then the mental aspect of like, how am I feeling today, and what is a frustration that happened today, what was a win that happened today. Just it's starting to head in that direction, and that spiritual component of gratitude. So like journaling I was going to say, like, in my research with it, has been proven, like, clinically to speed up the process of healing in the body.
Wow.
They've done research in it. So I'm like, okay, so this isn't just for my mental health. This is
Right.
like truly, this is a true mind body tool.
Yeah.
And I learned about like visualizations and how like gratitude and visualizations release dopamine and serotonin. And like I said, we want as much as that as possible. They're healing chemicals in our bodies, and um, rather than the cortisol. So being mindful of like what produces cortisol in my body versus what produces dopamine or serotonin was a really important thing for me to learn as I healed through this. So anyway,
Wow.
I created these prompts, and then a really dear friend of mine was like, let's like, because I said, like, I wish more people had this. Like,
Yeah.
people don't have access to something like this. No one's created this. She's like, okay, I'll help you. And she worked really hard to, well, anyway, I had like some not great situations with designers and so forth. And she took it upon herself with no design background to help me get this out into the world. And the people have loved it.
Yeah.
And the feedback I received was, hey, like, can you turn this into an app? Which that's what I've done. I created it's called the Within Me app, and it uses some of like most of the same, well, it uses the same prompts
Okay.
plus like I think it's like 50 prompts in total, and you get to choose what you're prompted to answer on a daily basis, and that information gets aggregated into data, and you can share that with your providers.
Oh, that is
So
so cool. I did
um,
not
yeah,
realize that.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So like
That's
if your
smart.
provider's like, track your blood pressure for the next 3 months, it's like, okay, I actually have here it is. But the one of the best parts that I think about like journaling in this app in general is that you really do get to connect dots in your health. Like as I was journaling, like I saw, if I was lucky, I'd see my doctor once a month, every 6 weeks. The magic happens in between the appointments. So like
Mm.
your doctor isn't with you 24/7. They can't see like, oh, like, dairy seems to be like maybe triggering migraines,
Yeah.
or when you sleep this many hours, you actually like your mental health seems to be better, or it seems to be challenged when you sleep this little of hours. So like that's really empowered, because chronic illness feels very disempowering.
Yeah.
So finding tools that make you feel empowered, it's like, wow, like I figured this out for myself. I'm going to bring this to my next doctor's appointment and see if it's a true correlation and if there's something we can do. I don't know, that's just there's something so awesome in that. Like it's past the point of nerdy, which I totally am about this too,
No,
but
it's so good.
it's a
Yeah.
really, yeah,
That's so
beautiful
cool.
thing.
I'm gonna totally download the app. I was waiting for it to come live because it was like live end of May, right? I think, or it was going to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So still working. There's still like it's the beginning stages. So
yeah.
it's like still like partly in beta. So don't mind like the little things, but we're perfecting it. I'm applying for grants. Like
Oh, that's
these things
cool.
take time and
Yeah, of
money, and
course.
yeah,
But at least you're
grants,
doing it.
grants, investors.
Yeah. Shout
Yeah, I'm
out.
trying. I'm trying the best I can. Shout out to
Yeah. No,
anyone,
that's huge.
prospective investors. Yeah,
I'm
it's
excited to use it because like I can't I my favorite well one of my favorite things is waking up and journaling, but I have like stopped or I go through periods on and off because if I write longer than like not very long at all, like 2 minutes, I get like this I don't know what it is, like the arthritis or I don't know, whatever. I won't have it one day, but I get like my hand cramps, and so I get like the shooting pain up my arm and shoulder, and then I'm just like left the rest of the day like that. So I haven't been journaling, but I love it. Like it just feels like I can't believe the release you feel. I tell anyone, like even if they're going through a breakup or like they're like missing someone, I'm like just write. Like it's just literally incredible. It's so cool that it doesn't surprise me there's research behind showing how all of that helps. But I love that you created the app because people who can write can do that. But then maybe in the meantime, like that's another tool to use. So that's so cool.
exactly. And I have the PDF version of the journal as well on
Oh,
my
cool.
website, which people have also found helpful. Like they can speak into it,
Wow.
if that just feels better to them.
That's so
Yeah.
neat. So,
Yeah.
on the link to, like, the Spotify or, YouTube, all the places that we're gonna post this podcast, then I'll have to link
Mhm.
definitely your website, and then we'll link the app and the journal, like, that whole, webpage. I'd also love to link the TED Talk too that you talked about, too, for people to watch that,
Mm,
and then there's that book too.
sure.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and write everything
Oh, yeah,
down,
When
but
the Body Says No, and, Dr. Gabor Mate, I highly recommend everyone actually read The Myth of Normal,
okay.
and because he delves into all of this and more. Um, yeah, we're Dr. Gabor Mate stands. Once you read it, you'll become a stand too.
That's
It
so
just
awesome. I
happens.
can't wait to look him up.
Because he gets it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He has a bunch of like free. Yeah, maybe I can send you some like podcast episodes to include from him. Like
Mhm.
just yeah, he's yeah, and like anyway, so much. I'm happy to send you all of it. I'm like, go watch Heal on
Oh, I love
Amazon. Go
Heal. It's
watch.
so
His,
good. I swear I felt like a rush of energy through my
it's so
body when I watched that documentary because it's
That's
nuts.
okay. So that rush of energy is what we're looking for, right? In the things we're choosing in our lives. Like we want to feel that. Like having this conversation with you, I'm feeling a rush of energy. You know, like this is so much. This is so medicinal.
Yeah,
That's it. I'm
yeah,
looking for all medicinal things, and we deserve medicinal things. So like, really walking away from things that lead us to dis-ease in our bodies and our
yeah,
lives.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Um,
Hmm.
what was the other thing that I was wanting oh, so where are you at with your, like, healing journey? Like, um, do you maintain with certain symptoms, or how do you feel, like, on yeah, I guess, like, a body level?
Yeah, yeah. Great question. It's not linear. Like I said, I'd love to be able to say like I've put this completely into remission.
Yeah,
No, like I just feel like I'm getting closer. I just keep peeling back layers and layers and layers and layers of this onion. And yeah, the thing for like right now, like I'm dealing with like heavy metals that I need to get
mm,
out of my body, and it's like I still have that all these ingredients in this soup
yeah,
that I'm trying to work through and work with, and it's a process. Like I
yeah,
kind of see this being like it's going to be the rest of my life
yeah,
that I work on myself and I do this, and I trust that my body has already put so much into remission and will continue to. And like I remind myself, I'm like, I didn't get here overnight.
yeah,
I'm not expecting to get out of this overnight either. With that being said, like I just got out of a pretty like major flare up that I realized was like led to like asthma attacks and like my
wow,
iron being like critically low. And so like I get out of that. The wave passes,
yeah,
and now we're like, okay, things have settled. Now that I'm at this calmer state, like let's get to the root of it.
yeah,
So anyway, just yeah, I have good days and I have challenging
yeah,
days. Sometimes I have good hours and I have really challenging hours, and I just try so hard to not let that dictate, the rest of the day or
yeah,
the rest of the year or anything, or let that reflect upon your like when I have a flare up, like it feels like I took 1,000 steps back, and it's like, nope, there's no way. Like I've taken a step to the side.
yeah,
That's how I see it. I'm like, it's never steps back, it's steps to the side, because like we've already been through this. We
yeah,
don't need to go back. Like we never start from square one when we have a flare up again, because we have so much more knowledge and wisdom from what we've already experienced.
yeah,
And yeah, that's how I have to see it. So no, like I'm still very much on my healing journey,
mhm,
and I am like here for as long as I need to be, and trust that yeah, I'm just on my way to feeling better and better and better and better.
yeah. Honestly, I appreciate, like, you, like, being honest and, like, saying, like, specifically, like, okay, that heavy metals are, I don't know, I think that I don't know if it's, like, an oxymoron, but I think that it's hard to be honest sometimes of, like, what we're going through, and I do think that there are some people who operate where it's like it's almost like this cloud is over what they're saying. So like they're here, the cloud's here, and you're here, and they're like not wanting to really show you that they're still going through it. And that's fine. It's probably a protection thing, and it's not like everyone has to be perfectly honest about every symptom they're going through. But what I've personally found is the more honest I am about where I am, the more like the better I feel, because I don't feel like I'm trying to pretend. And like for me, hearing it's that whole you don't look sick thing. Like for me hearing from you, like I would literally never guess that you've gone through a flare up. I wouldn't guess that you still are feeling symptoms, like all these different things. And sometimes that can feel weird to hear, but for me, when you're saying this and I'm like putting like the face and the voice to what you're saying you're going through, like I just feel almost weirdly encouraged, because I'm like, okay, well, look at Christina. Like, she's saying that she's going through these things, but like, she's still showing up for her job. She's showing up for this podcast. Like, she's showing up for other people and for herself. And to me, that's more encouraging than if you were to be like, yeah, I still go through it, but like not telling me what's going on. And again, not everyone has to be specific, but the more honest we are, the more empowering that is for the people
Completely
who
agree.
are really like, they are just like stuck in bed and they can't do anything. Like they're going to feel more encouraged, empowered, I think, to pursue like whatever it is they want when they're hearing that there's other people pursuing that and they're just trying to manage around symptoms versus waiting for a day where they look and feel completely better. Because for some of us, I don't know, it's a weird thing to have to settle within, but for some of us, we might have to just keep always dealing with these certain symptoms. But as soon as you're able to accept it, not in a way that it's like sad, but in a way of I'm always going to figure out how to heal and keep moving forward, like that's just going to help empower others to not, I think, feel defeated. I hope that all made sense. I was trying to get out everything that's
Yeah, it
going through
made
my head.
complete sense. I think like what you're like getting at too is like this authenticity piece, like just being the more authentic we are with one another, the more permission it gives us to be
Yeah.
authentic. And yeah, it's really, I mean, I'm very honest also, you know, with my clients, like I'm a human first, I'm a therapist
Mm-hmm.
second. So like I too am with like everyone going through this human experience. I'm not even like an inch above anyone
Yeah.
by any means. And, you know, yeah, anyway, it's just, it's part of this process. And it's like, for me, it's not even like the acceptance piece. It's like I'm just constantly in surrender.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm surrendering to this and I'm taking action in healing.
Yeah.
So these two things are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah. Okay, there's two more things I want to ask. Yeah.
Totally.
One thing
Yes,
is
please.
how do you like, because your job as a therapist and then specifically when you're talking with chronic illness patients, like how do you hear that and help? Well, I guess let me put it this way, like when I talk on the phone, um I would say like every month I have a couple people who reach out over text or phone, just like for looking for help or guidance, or just not even guidance, like recommendations when it comes to Lyme or pain or whatever it is. And when I have conversations, I feel when I'm able to help and give answers, I feel lighter at the end. But then I also feel like a sense of weight, because I'm like, I don't want this person to be going through that. And that's something that I'm like trying to learn how to um, work through, because I want to continue helping people, but then I don't want to feel the weight on my body. So how do you
Mm,
do that with that being your job? Like mine's just like every couple, and it's not even a therapy session, it's just someone asking for help. How do you
sure.
do that? Like take it on or not take it on?
So you're asking such amazing questions. Because no one's ever even asked me that, I think, in
Uh,
like a podcast or anywhere else. So like I consider my work to be radical. Your work is radical. What you're doing is radical with this nonprofit. Like it is. Because no one else, as far as I know, is doing this. So it's a radical approach. You're like, I'm trying to get as many people support and assistance as possible. So like people are calling you and it's like, it's heavy stuff. It's really heavy stuff. So it's our duty doing radical work. We have to couple that with radical self-care. So like the more like intense maybe a session is, like that means that day I need to like even up it even further for myself. So like, I mean, it's going to look different for everyone. But like try to take Epsom salts Epsom salt baths every single day because that is detoxing. I listen to like healing hertz music while I do it. I meditate and I visualize, and like, I know this is an interesting one. But like when I'm talking to someone, I visualize like whatever intense things they're saying that they're getting out of their system falling. It doesn't get into my body. It actually falls to the ground, and the ground neutralizes it, which is a real thing. The ground neutralizes everything. Like I used to think like, I don't want to even let this out because I don't want to like impact the earth because it's so toxic. It's like, no, the earth will let the earth neutralize it. The earth is medicine. The earth is here to heal us, to help us. So I really envision that happening. I do things like I bubble myself before, where it's like nothing can enter into my bubble unless it's like love and it's light and it's healthy and it's healing. And like, I don't say that I hold space for people. I say that I offer space to people, because holding space implies that I'm like physically having to hold so much weight and space. And yeah, so just and noticing that like what is someone else's is actually not yours. It's not yours. Like, and also like, I'm just going to say it too. Like I've worked with a lot of plant medicine. So like that has definitely helped in that, for me, at least in that process of not holding on to things that are not my own, including my own stuff. But like, as folks in, like, we are in service, I'm in service, like we do have a lot that comes on to us. So ensuring that my body does not take that on as dis-ease is really important, because I've already had enough of that, we don't need extra. None of us do. None of us need that. So I don't know if that helps answer your
that definitely
question,
helps.
but radical self-care.
Keep going. Especially when you're putting like a visual to it, that helps me, because like thinking of not like you said, not taking on, but maybe listening to someone and trying to gather like how to help them, but then doing something like Epsom salt baths, or just something that is self-care for you, that also knows like it's like detoxing and helpful for whatever your symptoms are. That makes so much sense. Like when you said that, I'm like, oh, I never even thought about, okay, I took on a lot today, so like I should just be like extra nice to myself or kind and do these things. That's a very I don't know what the word is. Like what's the word where it's in your hand? It's oh, what's the word? I always do this.
Oh, me too. Every day.
Whatever. It's like right there. Like it makes sense. I can put an act to what you're saying. So yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
And I think like, right, empathy is like such like a hot word right now. And I like to skew people away from that and towards compassion, because like empathy is like feeling what the other person is feeling, and like compassion is understanding what the other person, like, I don't want to like feel or take on somatically what someone else is experiencing. Like I just want to be like understanding and like there and present in what someone else is experiencing, so that they can move through it without taking like me down, quote unquote, with them, like that's not helpful to anyone. For us, like for you to be on the phone, someone like, oh my gosh, this is so much information, like you feeling dis-ease in your body, that's not helpful to anyone in that situation. So like, yeah, for those who are feeling this strongly, like Codependence Anonymous, look into like compassion work, like radical compassion work, radical everything, radical self-care, radical acceptance, radical forgiveness. Like these are all things that are just so beautiful to delve into and make amazing tools in the long run for your own sustainability.
That's so cool. Thanks for answering that question. And then the last thing that I was wondering is, the it's kind of been a tool for me, that email you sent to me. It's the things that you, I think, require of your patients. And I was reading through it, and I'm like, holy cow, there's such good information here. So you don't necessarily have to share everything on that, but I was just wondering if you could share like some things that you recommend someone who maybe is like a little bit like lost right now or uncertain. I know sometimes when you don't, for most people, you don't have like a team of doctors yet, or you're building and figuring out who fits what. So like what are some things that people can
Mhm.
do while they are like trying to find what works for them, that like maybe the is it DNRS, or is it something else that you
Oh
have?
yeah, neural retraining. So yeah,
Yeah.
the email I sent you is just like what I sent after if I have like a consultation appointment with a new client or prospective client.
Mhm.
What I'm doing is I'm just constantly collecting resources and putting them into things. And like often the resources are coming also from like other clients I'm working with. Like, hey, I
Okay.
just found this amazing meditation or this amazing podcast episode. So I'm constantly adding to it. Like the two requirements for me are, so it's the neural retraining piece, which
Okay.
there are so many different types of neural retraining companies. What I'm going to say to anyone who's listening, who's interested, it gets you out of fight or flight by giving you like a daily exercise. It's all based on neuroplasticity, which the idea is that we heal our brains, we heal our bodies, because everything starts, right? It's not in our heads, but it is in our brains.
Yeah, yeah.
And those things, when people are like, oh, it's in your head, it's like, well, my head's not separate from my body,
Yeah.
first of all. But okay, we'll go from there. So neural retraining is just, yeah, it's essentially it's getting out of that fight or flight mode, getting your cortisol down as much as possible, and getting that serotonin and dopamine up. And I could do a whole program with a client, no doubt about that. But why would I do that when they could just, for a fraction of the price, just pick a program of their choosing, and
Yeah.
they could run with that while I'm working with them on other stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, anyway, so there's that. And then like these are just all the things in the email, it's like discussing mindfulness and meditation. And like, even if you do 1 minute a day, that's something. Like breath work. Oh my gosh, there's so much healing in breath work. Gratitude practices, visualization practices. It's a free playlist on Spotify. It's called Hurts So Good, HZ, so good. And it's healing Hertz music, which there's so much coming out with like, frequency
Yeah.
machines for Lyme and for other chronic illness. And like, that's because we are energetic beings. So like listening to music that also like gets us into like a zone of healing out of fight or flight is huge. That's why I'm like, I know this isn't vegan, but like hitting two birds with one stone, like in taking an Epsom salt bath and listening to
Mhm.
healing Hertz music. Like that's what I do. Yeah, like EFT, tapping exercises, talking about movement.
Mm.
When we're like couch bound or bed bound, like movement's really hard because maybe we feel too dizzy, too sick to get up. Like, but there are things we can start to do. Like, we underestimate how important movement is. And there are, like, I've seen them, like, I personally seen them, and I've seen them on Instagram and so forth, like physical therapists and coaches who are chronic illness informed, who
Yeah.
understand what it's like to not be able to move. Sleep hygiene, like sleep is so important. So I have
Mm.
like, yeah, I'm trying to think. I have components on that. I talk about, of course, neural retraining, like rewiring our brain.
Yeah.
Going there's like, I believe we heal in community. And so
Mm.
like the support group I offer, there's like chronic illness creative circles, create how important creativity is, books, podcasts, documentaries. um, and then of course, like with the finding the root cause doctor, it's like ruling out like Lyme, co-infections, heavy metals, candida,
Yeah.
mycotoxins, mold, parasites, all of the things that could be in your soup, importance of journaling, hotlines. Yeah. And just like, I just collect so many resources, and I have them all in one place. And I even have on my website just like a resource list of like different resources that are out there. And like,
Perfect.
even like when it comes to self-care, like going for like, oh, I can't afford a massage, I can't afford a
Mm.
facial, like can go to like universities, like the school, like esthetician schools
Oh,
and cosmetology
wow.
schools. That's a
Yeah.
that's a hack. It's a hack. Yeah. And if someone doesn't have insurance, go to a naturopath university. Like these are like the little things. Because
Wow.
this isn't Lyme disease is not cheap. That's called a designer disease for a reason because
Yeah.
of I can't tell. I don't even want to discuss how much I've
I
spent
know.
on my healing journey. And so like I'm I'm constantly trying to find things. You're trying and you're like, that's what you're doing. You're amazing. You're building this like bridge for people to have access
Mm,
to people like me or other practitioners that can possibly help them heal themselves.
yeah. That's cool. So we'll link your resource
So
the
I know it's a lot of
resource page.
information,
Yeah.
but
We'll link the page so people can go
yeah.
on and see, but that's
Okay.
cool. So one more question going back to the neural retraining program. Is there one that you recommend or do they all kind of like do similar things, would you say?
Yeah. I got like DNRS for free. A friend had the DVD set
Yeah.
and I saw her. She went to a workshop and she came back like a different person. And I'm like, at this point, I have
Wow.
nothing to lose. Like, but also in my head, I'm like, maybe this worked for her. This isn't going to work for me. And no, it was like life changing in every way, shape, and form. So I got that for free. So,
Okay.
the other ones, like I've gotten to delve into. So what I was going to say is like Gupta, I feel like Gupta and DNRS are probably the most popular and they do
Okay.
have like free trials, which I believe at the end of the trial, still they offer like like a certain amount of money off
Yeah.
when you complete the trial. So what I recommend to people is like delve in and like try the trials or meet with the people or read reviews and so forth where you can like make an informed decision because what I want like maybe you find a person's voice annoying who's doing it and like that might hinder you from completing it. Yeah, I won't say anything else
That's so
about
funny.
okay, but that is a real thing, like just ensuring that you're vibing with the person who's giving you the information, that it feels really really good. But yeah, there's what else who else is doing it. Yeah, I think I sent you, there was like one, like Primal Trust is one that my clients are all adoring.
Okay.
I have not done it. I've just seen a little bit on it. I know Joe Dispenza, I don't know if he did a program, or it was a documentary on Gaia with like Rewired. And then, yeah, Irene Lyon, Lyon, has like a free 3-part neural retraining
So there's so many. So
thing that
really
she
it's
has on her
just doing
website that
it.
I've seen.
It's just about
Yeah,
trying. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
choosing the one that resonates
Okay.
that resonates with you the most so
Yeah.
that you will actually do it.
Yeah.
And just understanding, like, I'm going to just highly encourage everyone to understand why it's so
Mm.
it's so important, like what it actually does for the brain and the physical. So yeah, it's based on neuroplasticity. And yeah, it's and what is neuroplasticity? Like the capacity for the brain to change and rewire itself in response to stimulation and learning and experience, which is what these programs offer. So we can essentially heal our bodies by healing our brains and our nervous systems.
Mhm.
And it's a daily practice. So it helps you create these new neural pathways that get us out of that fight or flight response and prioritize and I've already said this a million times, but it's worth saying again, like healing over surviving. So it
Yeah.
gets us out of that fight or flight into rest and digest or rest and repair. So it allows our bodies to truly prioritize that. And yeah, just for anything I've mentioned, like if anyone's interested, like please do your own research, see what resonates, see what's in alignment. There is no one size fits all approach in anything. But I will say that in my professional and personal experience, that neural retraining has definitely been helpful to anyone I know who's done it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of people it's important for a lot of people in like the Lyme and chronic illness community to make that connection because it'll just I think help their healing progress even more. And I think that that thought might even be a little what's the word, like not out there but just like hard to connect for people who haven't gone through like really any chronic illness or trauma. But I know for me, and I haven't tried any neural retraining. Yeah, I did the neurofeedback, and that was huge for me in certain aspects. But even now, the neurofeedback helped me learn how to recognize when my body's freaking out, and I have been able to calm like what's going on down with distracting or changing my mind. So I can only imagine how
Yeah.
much more doing a program like the DNRS or the other neural retraining would help, because it's like crazy how I was just telling my husband the other day how like I'll have these thoughts that come into my mind when I'm driving, and I literally know I'm on the edge. Either I'll go this way and I'll go into the panic attack, but I know where that brought me, and at least now I'm recognizing it, whereas before I wasn't recognizing what was happening. I would just feel the feelings and go down that path. And now I'm like,
Yeah.
I can like not talk myself out of it, but just like teach my body that like I'm totally fine, I'm safe, like your body's trying to heal. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's like a super
Mm-hmm.
and think about it, like you said, like um if you're doing something every day, like that's a little bit of an exercise, like that's going to be huge, even if they're doing the trial over and over again or something. There's all different ways
Yeah.
to get access
Sure.
to it. So that's really cool.
Sure.
Yeah, I feel like we could talk for so much longer, but for the sake of time and yeah, honoring your time, I think we'll wrap up. But I'd love to, I don't know, there's so many different topics that we could talk about. So maybe in the future we could do more
Just
episodes,
another one.
and yeah, we'll just do a different
Yeah.
episode. But thanks so
Yeah.
much for
I
taking your
agree.
time with me,
Thank
yeah, and
you.
sharing your heart and your knowledge. You're so smart. Yeah, I could totally just pick your brain for so long. But and thanks so much for what you're doing for like the chronic illness community and people with Lyme and all that. To me, it's like so cool what you're doing. So yeah.
Ditto, ditto, sister,
Thanks.
like 100%. Like that's it. Like you're like, we're traumatic that we're still getting through ourselves to help others to get to this point or even better. Right. So
Mm.
what a gift to be able to share with the world. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for all that you do and all that you are.